In the original Metal Gear, rookie Solid Snake is sent to Outer Heaven by Big Boss. Now, he's sent to recover Gray Fox, who was sent in to investigate a mysterious weapon that these mercenaries are building, and it turns out that it is the first incarnation of this huge nuclear robot thing called Metal Gear. Now, along the way, Solid Snake will come into a lot of weird bandits and whatnot, and it starts the trademark of the series. It's very light on story, but actually pretty good for the times in 1987. Also, at the end, you find out that, Big Boss was actually behind it all. Now, as for the gameplay, it too was revolutionary. For one thing, you kind of go into the base, you can sneak around, you can crouch, you can hide around places. If an enemy spots you, you'll go into like an alert mode, and you can fight them off, and eventually the alert will go down. You also have the ability to use items like rations to heal yourself, and you have pistols and other stuff too. Also, at any time, you can call Big Boss and he'll offer you advice, though a lot of the times he'll say the same thing over and over again, as, you know, there wasn't a lot of memory back then. But still, with all the stuff, it was, again, pretty amazing for what they could do back then. In Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, it's been 4 years since the events of the first game. Snake is now in retirement, but he's pulled back out by the new commander Roy Campbell so that he can rescue a scientist in the fictional land of Zanzibar Land. Now, it's basically the same story. You go in there, you try to rescue stuff, there's prisoners, rescue them, you will meet more characters that they'll be able to help you than in the original ones. That's one improvement. Like a CIA operative that can help you along the way, along with characters that are kind of familiar. It's a very close retread of the first game. It's also very close to Metal Gear Solid, but I'll get into that later. Anyway, so it turns out that, Big Boss survived and he has another Metal Gear, and you deal with all that again, put everything to a close, finish the job, whatnot. As for the gameplay, it's very close to the original. This time they included a radar. Again, another step into revolutionary. And obviously it's used in all the Metal Gear games today. You can see the enemies walk around, and you can't see their cone of sight, but you can at least see them walking around. There's also better capabilities of equipment, there's more people to talk to on your radio, a little bit more as in dialogue and story in general. Just everything just a little bit upgraded and integrated better. Also, if you are detected, there is now, instead of just fighting off the guys and everything being done, now you actually have to hide for a while and a timer will go down until it's okay to not be in alert mode. So both games are a little archaic to play, but they actually still hold up very well, if that makes any sense.
So you're the one that the boss keeps talking about.
6 years after the events of Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid takes place on Shadow Moses Island. Solid Snake is again taken out of retirement, and he must rescue the DARPA chief. This is where he finds out about the Metal Gear and other stuff. Now, as for story, this one is a huge leap, of course, above the old PC version. It was years later before this game was made, and Kojima took the right steps into waiting for so long. He told a much better narrative. There's tons of conversations over the walkie. Everything is voiced. Wonderful voice talent, though, you know, cheesy at times. Throughout the game, he will encounter a variety of new characters, some very similar to what he has uncovered before in Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. There's a lot of emotion in the game, too, especially with the villains. Before, you basically just met them in the games and then you fought them. This one, they're recurring throughout the game. Kind of learn about their psyche, and they're all very cool and very badass and whatnot. It just makes you more thrilled for all the boss battles and everything. Big Boss doesn't come around again, but you do find and fight your brother, Liquid Snake, and there's a huge spar off against him and a giant Metal Gear again, and then you speed away. This is also the first occurrence of Revolver Ocelot, though we talked about him with the Big Boss and stuff, and Otacon, two mainstay characters in the series, along with some others. Generally, the story is very good, and while fantastical, it's also very normal compared to everything past this point, as well as Metal Gear Solid 3. Now, with the gameplay, everything again is kind of like a step up from the original Metal Gear games. It's still over-the-top kind of view, but now it's in 3D, and you can move around, you can hide over walls, look behind them, you can have a first-person view to observe your surroundings. Noise matters, all the enemies do have cones of sight, and again, the radar is back along with the alarm warnings. Everything is just an integration of what stealth games have tried to do up to this point, and everything is just very well executed. Still, replaying it again, it is a little clunky. It's hard to get used to the camera angles at times, especially some of the boss battles. So while it takes some getting used to, it's still very easily playable and has some amazing moments, including some very awesome boss scenes, including Revolver Ocelot's showdown, as well as Psycho Mantis. So make sure you have some Konami games because there's some awesome Easter eggs in this game. Overall, it was a huge step in the Metal Gear franchise, as well as a huge step in general for a lot of games.
Metal Gear.
What the original Metal Gear Solid did for the PS1, Metal Gear Solid 2 did for the PS2. It came out early in the PS2's life cycle and really brought to life, again, what Kojima had been trying for all this time, telling a very good story along with having amazing stealth gameplay mechanics. Now, with Shadow Moses on Metal Gear Solid, everything was a little bit more contained and it was very linear in what you had to do. Now, Metal Gear Solid 2, the two spaces that you encounter in the game are very, very sandboxy. There's a lot to do, there's all kinds of secrets to uncover, there's multiple paths to get there. Now, with the story, everything becomes a little bit more, as I said, fantastical. 2 years after the events of this, Otacon and Solid Snake are now working together for this group called Philanthropy, and they're trying to stop these Marines who have now been working on this new Metal Gear version, and he is sent in to see if it's true or not. Well, Russians take over this boat, along with you meet up with Revolver Ocelot again. And Liquid Snake's arm has been grafted onto Revolver Ocelot, and he has bits of rage with him, and it's very weird. Anyway, throughout this part of the story, the tanker capsizes, and everyone is to believe dead. The oil spills out, and a fictional tanker facility is constructed, and it has been taken over while the president was there for inspection by this mysterious mercenary group. A new person is sent in to uncover it. Codename is Raiden, and this shocked people for the most part because people expected it to be Solid Snake, but instead we got Raiden, who was kind of a pansy, a lot have been characterized him for. He's very, very much a rookie, and it was hard to get used to him compared to the gruffness and sort of badassness of Solid Snake. But anyway, back to the mission itself. Raiden is set to rescue the president, which he does, and he also runs into basically, spoiler, Solid Snake, who is disguised as actually a soldier. Also, along with Revolver Ocelot having Solid Snake's brother's arm grafted onto him, there's another clone of Big Boss, which I'm not sure if I've said yet, but yes, Liquid and Solid are both clones of Big Boss, along with their older brother, Solidus, who is basically behind all this stuff. Gets very confusing towards the later 2 hours of the game. Anyway, on to the gameplay. Everything, again, is basically upgraded from what it was, but now it's more 3D. The first-person view of shooting stuff is awesome. The tranquilizer gun is very revolutionary because you can go through the whole game without having to hurt anybody, even bosses. And there's also hidden collectibles and stuff like that. It's just, there's a lot there and tons of Easter eggs.
War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine.
And now we have come to the last Metal Gear chronologically in the series, as of now, Metal Gear Solid 4. The game takes place 5 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 2, where Snake has been infected basically by the Foxdie virus that has basically aged him to be an old man. He's sent to the Middle East because there's this whole war going on for these PMCs, or private military groups, and there's like big weird genetic Metal Gears running around, and he's sent in to basically stop Revolver Ocelot, who's trying to basically create this war. Well, of course, along the way, it's more to it than that. A lot of returning characters pop back, as like Otacon and Meryl, actually, who's a lot more qualified now to be a soldier. She's no more a rookie anymore. This game, again, did for the PS3 what all the other games did for their systems. It is beautiful. The story, maybe not the most bizarre, but this one is just way over the top. There's crazy bosses, crazy characters. Also, the cutscenes are enormous. He basically packed 50 gigs worth of stuff. While not that long, there's a lot to do in it, a lot of story, and the ending, no kidding, it's about a 2-hour cutscene. It's a very good story if you like the Metal Gear stuff. It's very, again, if you've been following for now, it's very anime-like. You basically know what you're getting into. So in that sense, it's very good. It ties in a lot of what all the other Metal Gears have been hinting at, and basically just kind of tie everything together, which is actually pretty amazing. Mechanics, gameplay. Now Hideo Kojima has put in a lot of Western influence stuff. The controls are a little bit more what you would expect maybe in like a Call of Duty or something like that, though a little tweaky here and there. He brings back the whole camo thing. Basically, it's a stealth suit that if you, lay on the sand, it'll automatically become this sand thing instead of having to, change a bunch of stuff. So in that way, it made the camo stuff a lot better. He has a lot more gadgets, like a little robot that he can go and spy on stuff, and just, again, iterations of what he's been doing before. Mechanically, it's probably the best in the series. Rotating camera, just beautiful, beautiful environments. But still, for being a game that came out in 2008, it is an amazing. But, there's a lot of traveling around instead of having just like one big place that I wasn't really a fan of. There's a couple acts in the game that I found a little bit tedious. While I don't think it's the best Metal Gear in the series, I do think the controls are the best, along, of course, with the graphics and whatnot. And I think the story is pretty good overall, except, again, some of those acts. Yeah, overall, a very good game.
Stop right there!
Big bosses, sexy models, Metal Gears, super guns, tranquilizers, cowboys, psycho mantises, all kinds of weird stuff. And that is the series of Metal Gear. Will it continue? Well, Hideo Kojima has said that Metal Gear Solid 5 is in production and that it is not the end. So, of course, I'll be reporting on that. But for now, this has been the history of Metal Gear. Happy anniversary, Metal Gear.